Wow, did we actually get a noteworthy film from the Shudder versions finally in this franchise?
Those were up, and they did.
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I.
Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review. And this review is going to be for a film that came on streaming this weekend. And it's a horror film in another horror franchise. It's been long running. It's the sixth installment in this, the third installment in the streaming versions of this. But it's the sixth entry in the series as a whole. Main installment, it's actually the eighth one because we had another spin-off of this franchise earlier this year. And this film is going to be for none other than this weekend's VHS 85, the sixth installment in the VHS series, and it's technically chronologically the very, 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 very first of the VHS films chronologically, because it's 1985. Last two were 1994 and 1999. This one is 1985. And for this one, it takes viewers on a journey into the grim underbelly of the forgotten 1980s. It's unveiled for a made-for-TV documentary, and it's five chilling tales. For our first main story, we have scientists observing an unusual boy fixated on his TV. Then the actual first story is kids embarking on a lake skiing adventure. Then a second one is about a TV crew fighting to survive a natural disaster. A third story is about a VR early days, which awakens something terrifying. And then, of course, our final story is a deadly dream captured on a tape. Well, there's a second half of the first story, which is about a person that's killing all these guys going on lake skiing. And sinister secrets of the 1980s come to life in a way they've never seen before. It's the plot of this one. How was this made? Well, around October 2022, when VHS 99 was releasing, Bloody Disgusting literally revealed that 85 was actually secretly shot back-to-back with 99, in secret. And directors David Bruckner, Scott Derrickson, Gigi Saul Guerrero, Natasha Kermani, and Mike P. Nelson would direct segments, while Josh Goldblum, Brad Miska, David Bruckner, Chad Vallena, Matt Berlet-Olpin, Tyler Gillette, and James Harris will produce the film. Filming began in April 2022 with VHS 99, and then in October 2022, Scott Derrickson confirmed his segment was already completed. So after the film was shot, and we had two trailers for the film, VHS 85 would go on to premiere at Fantastic Fest on September 2023 last month, and has been released onto streaming October 6th to this weekend on Friday, October 6th. And of course, because, well, not many critics have reviewed this series so far, it got positive reviews from them. But that's because that's because they don't have like loads of reviews. Now it's right, but as for me personally, my reaction, you all know I'm mixed on the VHS franchise. This franchise has good segments. Occasionally these movies will have a good segment or two. But rest of the series, I'm mixed on, especially with the wraparounds often always killing the series for me. The first film, I don't like. I only liked the first segment from David Bruckner, and the last segment from Radio Silence, the Halloween one with the teddy bear nanny cam costume in the haunted house, that one was alright. Up until that stupid downer ending ruined that whole segment for me. I know there's a joke ending, and they should have kept the joke ending. Everything else I definitely don't like. mean, like, the first film, we have this shitty wraparound where literally the movie focuses on the leads being scumbag creepers that go around sharking girls in parking lots, smashing up houses, laughing about it, then talking about how they want to lift up dresses and show women's bums on cameras next summer, on, till her TV gets smashed by the leader because he keeps telling them to shut up so he can announce his plan to break in and steal the tape. And then, of course, they go to that house where they have to steal the tape from, and there's a dead guy, and they're so fucking stupid. Guess what? Because they're so fucking stupid, they watch the tapes with the dead guy in the room, and they all die one by one. That's a sign your characters are fucking idiots. And you feel like a shitty person for watching for all these wraparound scenes. But then the second movie, I loved the second movie. That's easily one of my favorite found footage films and one of my favorite anthology films of all time. I liked nearly all the segments in that one. The only segment I hated in VHS 2 was that bullshit eyeball one, which had a nice concept, but it really just got ruined because they were going to get James Rolfe to play the guy with the eyeball, but he couldn't do it. So the director Adam Wingard had to pretty much do the role, and he looked just bored in that role the whole time. He felt like he was bored making this segment. So unfortunately, that segment's concept was ruined. And the wraparound was better, but definitely weak. And then, of course, the third film, Viral, came out, and it was utter bullshit. Easily a disgrace of an anthology. But despite that, though, there was only one good segment in that movie, and that was Bone Storm. But even the wraparound in Viral was better than the wraparound in the first film. And once Viral's bad performance nearly shut down the series for a few years, they went into the spin-off of the first segment of the first film, and it had decent gore, but I just don't think the Succubus story works as a full-length movie, and it only works as a short film. Then even the Alien segment from VHS 2 got a movie adaptation earlier this year, and it was horrendous. Yeah, I watched Kids vs. Aliens this year, guys. It is bullshit. It's awful. It's an absolute insult to the short. Like, the short was great, and I was actually hyped for this because the original director of the short was going to be doing this one. And he made the aliens in his short film terrifying as fuck. So I couldn't wait to see how this would work as a full-length movie, and I felt stupid for doing that. It sucked. Big time. But now back to the main series. In 2021, the series came back with VHS 94, which was enjoyable. It was alright. For the time being, it was the second best of the series, but still not like great like VHS 2, but the second most tolerable. The sewer segment was good, and also, I think, although by far the best segment of that movie was that epic, badass first-person shooter segment, the subject really made the film worth it. It really loves the subject. It really felt like you were watching an Indonesian version of Hardcore Henry and Doom, and even feeling like a Doom video game. Really, that segment had a smile on my face the whole time. Very epic segment, and it's easily the second best segment of the series. Then last year, we had the fifth entry called VHS 99, and it was definitely weaker. Although, even 99, I'd rather watch over the first one, Viral, because at least they finally ditched the wraparounds. They clearly realized they can't make a good wraparound, so we're just not going to fucking do one for a change. And we have these toy soldiers being the cutaways before the shorts. And this one also did have two good segments. The best segment of this movie was Suicide Bid. It really captured that claustrophobic feel of filming someone being trapped in a coffin. It really got that claustrophobic feel out of me. And it gets very scary. That whole segment gets scary as fuck as it progresses. To Hell and Back, I thought was actually pretty decently enjoyable. I mean, I liked that it had a self-aware vibe, and I feel like To Hell and Back would work as a good movie. It has a perfect story that would work as a full-length film. Except the thing is, To Hell and Back almost also got ruined by the downer ending of it, because I feel like To Hell and Back should have had a better ending. But I like that it had a more self-aware vibe. It's like they recognize that a lot of these segments are good at being scary, so they decided to make this one a little more self-aware. But if it was self-aware, they should have had a good ending, not a downer ending that belongs in a horror film. But now we get on to VHS 85, this movie. How was it? I'm going to be honest, guys. If you're expecting a rant, and some of you fans who hated this movie are expecting me to destroy this thing to pieces, you're not going to get that because, honestly, I thought this was kind of enjoyable. I'm not going to lie. Even slightly more so than VHS 94 because even the wraparound of VHS 94 was also shit. I think this one was the first time I've enjoyed a film in this series since VHS 2. Still not as good as VHS 2, no doubt. But I still thought this was pretty good as well. It still had problems, yes. But there's not as much of the same old douchey sexual stuff as some of the other films. This one I liked. It went back to the horror. It didn't have any of the 90s comedy for this round like VHS 99 did. This felt pretty fresh again. It felt like... Because after VHS 99, I didn't really like some of the cringy comedy stuff of that one. I tried to have some faith in this one because Scott Derrickson was doing Excitement, and I've really liked his last film, The Black Phone, and I could feel he has a big career ahead of him in horror. And David Bruckner, the guy who did the best segment of the first one, was going to be coming back and doing the cutaway frame narrative for this one, and this was being set in 1985, the time when VHS tapes were dominant. And I like the 87 idea, and that two good directors were going to be doing this, and one of them coming back. So, I had some faith for this one. I really hope this one could really go back to the VHS 2 days. And VHS 85, it's a good entry. And surprisingly, almost all the segments... Okay, technically speaking, there's two segments. There's a segment that gets split into two halves. Combine that together, and it's actually alrightly enjoyable. And two other segments actually turned out to be really, really great. And the wraparound story was actually not bad. Finally, a frame narrative that wasn't fucking crap. Finally get a decent frame narrative here. It's not the same old, hey, we found these tapes, let's stay in the house, we'll die one by one watching them. No. This one feels more like a documentary-style frame narrative. It's like they're finally recognizing they can't do a good, let's watch the tapes and die one by one stuff, so let's just stop doing that. Let's actually try not doing that for these next films. This feels more like an actual better wraparound. It's not douchey criminals, it's not two illegal investigators, it's not unprofessional SWAT idiots. These guys are actually scientists that actually act professional. I mean, you don't really care for them much, but they're professional. But at least they're actually act like people that are professional in their jobs. But nowadays, the VHS series is becoming this dependable spooky season staple for horror fans. And with films like 85, it's easy to see why. And another batch of filmmakers, they get the creative liberties to craft short found-on-video horrors. And this time it's a 1980s theme. The last two were 90s themes. This one is the 80s. Events usually range from goth kids that predict murders to water skiers who happen upon eternal life, and they show a range of storytelling that's usually been, but is becoming even more anticipated element in these VHS movies. And we're usually 5 entries now into another anthology series with multiple short films, and VHS 85 feels as fresh as like Betamax did in the 1970s. And if you're a VHS fan, I think 85 won't be the entry that sours your tune. I mean, now I'll admit though, VHS 85 at first does start off like it's going to be disappointing. When we get to the first segment, I'm like, oh boy, I really hope I don't end up hating this. I really hope not. The first story, it's the story about these 7 campers, and it just ends abruptly before it even gets interesting. And at the time, of course, it does pay off in an okayish way later, but I don't think... Why did they really need to split into 2 halves? Like, they could have just left it as just one whole entire segment. It would have been better. Then, of course, but the second story was thankfully better. But back to this, though. They actually get right into this. It's not a main story about who we're watching the videos. We literally start off the movie with this story of vacation, youth, recreation, death, sudden, surprising horror. And it was just partying, but it turns out it's just an old videotape of young adults having fun. Well, and what could go wrong? Oh, right, everything, because of course it is. And the first segment is, more about the first segment. It feels misleading. I almost forgot what kind of movie it was until things got but it gets more intense as this movie progresses. And then it takes a turn. It takes a very different turn. It's not your usual typical VHS movie. It's not a typical cash grab low budget horror. It does well for itself. So the second story was great here. But then the third story came on, and the third story was definitely terrible, predictable, tepid, and really lame, and just really pretentious. And I think of all the segments in this one, the fourth segment, Dream Kill by Scott Derrickson, was the best one of all of them. It's got the shades of the sinister influence cartoonist murders we see through gray, burnt colored trailer footage. And as carving knives, we see flesh chunks that peel back like human jerky, and the vibes of Dream Kill recall this film called the Pugskeepy Tapes. We feel disgustingly complicit. It's like we're watching these dark web snuff cliffs. It's definitely revolting, but it's made infinitely more interesting by introducing an investigating cop's son who pretensively witnesses each murder in his dreams. And everything collides with cataclysmic results, crams more twists, turns and more bloody gore than some full-length features can muster. To a certain extent, it's usually true that unpredictability, like with tone, subject, and skill level alike, might be more of a feature than a bug in a franchise model and the folklore experience of watching this mysterious tape full of half-erased nightmare fuel no one was ever supposed to see. Now let's discuss. Now, we're going to go into detail more about all the segments in this movie. Our frame narrative for this one, I don't really want to call this a wraparound because usually it doesn't really feel like a wraparound. This one, our frame narrative is called Total Copy, and it's done by David Bruckner. The story is presented as a made-for-TV documentary, and this one is about a strange boy named Rory who sits on his couch watching TV. Some call this a wraparound, but I disagree once again. Because usually the wraparounds in this one mean finding and watching these tapes, but it's not that here. They've abandoned that for once. I like they're not doing it for these recent two movies. This one is this little documentary, and it feels like those Bill Nye Science Guy episodes you watched in school. So I did like that. It's pretty fun and exciting, right till the alien Rory starts to take the shape. And why is that freaky? Well, it's because Rory's in a room that isn't accessed by Gary, and it's viewed by everyone through this two-way glass. So pretty much the fact Rory takes Gary's form means that it can literally see the scientists through the two-way glass, and sort of thinks this project has gone too far and they should abort it immediately. But because one of the scientists is all greedy and full of ambition, he doesn't really care, decides that they're going to do this anyway. So Sarah decides to quit, and nobody follows suit, or especially Gary, despite the fact that that guy's clearly disturbed by this whole development. Then one fine day, the situation seems to worsen as this Rory guy appears to be sick. One girl warns our main scientist guy that if Rory's that intelligent, he could start faking his illness and lure in prey. But of course, that guy doesn't listen to her, and he pretty much sends Gary, that one guy that's disturbed by all this. He's now anxious that there's an alien that looks like him to administer this shot of adrenaline. Then that guy and that girl that warned him earlier, they rush in to save Gary once he's caught by a tentacle. And this is around this part, it's throughout this whole movie, but let's just describe the wraparound now and get this one out of the way. And they realize now Gary's lost cause, and they let him go, and they just leave him to die. And they quickly make a run for it. Then that lady bites dust. She gets killed by the alien, and when our main guy tries to open the exit door that can be accessed with the scientist's handprint, it fails to open because unfortunately the guy has blood on his hands, so it doesn't work. He tries to wipe it off and unlock the door. It still doesn't work for him, so he's screwed. And right around this ending of the wraparound, I actually got a little spooked and a little bit nervous with this one. This one really felt like intense tension and fear right here. It really captures the tension well with this. And these guys are at least people doing their jobs. So they're not overly unprofessional swearing idiots like the SWAT guys in 94 were. But then of course, the alien, Rory, it uses mimicking powers that's now growing to change the key to the locks, clearly, because we found out it pretty much changed all the locks, so the main guy, scientist guy, can't get out. And then, of course, Rory, now in full alien form, and kills the scientist and cameraman. And it drags the cameraman and puppeteers them, Margaret and Gary, to make them dance like women in the workout videos it watches all the time. And, but then, so I was liking this wraparound's ending until that last shot. Like, right there, it's where the cutaway short just lost me. It seemed like it was tense and seemed very terrifying at the end, but you ended with the alien making them do women yoga dances, really. And plus, the alien just kind of looks like a discount xenomorph from the Alien movies. That's the frame, that's the whole frame narrative, guys. It goes on throughout the whole movie, but that just explains how the whole frame narrative works. But after the first bit of the frame narrative, we get to our first segment, and that's No Wake. And this is technically split into two halves because there's another half of the segment called Ambrosia, which is also done by Mike P. Nelson. Both these two are done by Mike P. Nelson. And Mike P. Nelson, for those of you who are not familiar with this guy, Mike P. Nelson directed the 2021 Wrong Turn reboot. But on to this one. It's basically about these 7 young adults. They're on their way to camp at a lake. And at first, it literally starts off like a ripoff of Creepshow 2 segment The Raft. Because the Creepshow 2 had a similar segment like this. Because it's a no trespassing lake. They ignore the warning. This is kind of just like Creepshow 2, I thought. Like, oh god, don't tell me they're going to rip off a segment from the Creepshow movies in this one. It's not exactly the same segment because Creepshow 2 was about a raft and this little oil bubbly thing that just kills anybody that enters the lake. This one's a little different. I did like the gore in this segment, but the thing is, this segment just abruptly ends before anything else actually interesting happens. And the guys in the segment were idiots because they ignore a trespassing sign, they go in it anyway. Once the group arrives, they all make their way into the water on a boat, but there's 2 that decide to stay behind. And while the rest of the people that choose to ignore the warning are on the boat, this unseen person begins to shoot them from afar, and it's pretty much nearly killing the 5 adults. And moments after having all died, the adults just wake up confused, and they're worried about how they're still alive despite their wounds. And one girl has half her cheeks shot right off, and this was a good gore shot right there. Then they make their way to the shore, and they discover the couple who stayed behind are also dead, but they're not resurrected. They find out that their RV has a number 7 written on the side of it in blood, and they decide they think the reason they're still alive, even after being shot, and not the couple's because, well, they swam in the lake while the couple didn't. So I guess there are maybe multiple signs around the lakes warning swimmers not to enter the water. But then the group forms, and they decide they're going to get the revenge on their attackers as well, but it seems like this segment's going to really get interesting here. It seems like it's going to really start to get interesting, but as that happens, the segment just abruptly ends before anything great's about to happen. So really, I first thought, what was the point of this segment? At first, but then after our third segment, the virtual reality one, we get to the other half of the segment, and that's called Ambrosia. In Ambrosia, this one's about this teenage girl who's shown recording a family get-together event, and then this cousin of hers takes the camera and takes over the recording. The girl's mom literally sends her out to bring more potato salad. Outside, there's this little boy that shoots out roof with a water gun. The girl gets angry at him, and she asks the boy where the water gun was from, and tells her, I got it from that RV over there. And that same RV from the first half of the short is speeding off. Then after a while, we cut back to the footage, and the party's ending, and a handful of families stay behind. They're going to celebrate their ancient family tradition. The lead girl, makes a speech to her family that she's proud to take part in this tradition, and it's to take the lives of 7 people. And she explains that since they're not going to share photos of the murders, she's going to actually share the video recording, and the recording reveals that, and we find out that this segment is literally about the girl who murdered those adults from the first half of this segment. Right there. Then the video footage, but just as the video footage ends, the police surround the family home, and the family goes to get their guns, and they decide to arm themselves with the guns. And police raid the home, they kill everyone inside. And right here, the part of this segment actually reminded me of the beginning scene of the Devil. So it's kind of like the beginning scene of the Devil's Rejects, where the police raid the Firefly home, and they shoot up the whole Firefly, and they're pretty much shooting up the whole family. right there. Right? This half of the segment kind of gave me those Devil's Rejects vibes. Then the lead girl, the mom tells her that if they get near you, you have to shoot yourself. You cannot let them take you alive. During the shootout, she gets shot multiple times. Well, before that, she tells her cousin to kill somebody. He can't go through with it, so she shoots him. Then she gets shot multiple times. But then she wakes up and she attempts to take her own life by shooting herself in the head, but it fails. A gunshot doesn't kill her. And then police enter the house and they arrest her. And it's revealed that that woman in RV is one of Ruth's victims from the lake and had given the little boy this water gun full of lake water to make Ruth immortal like them. So the water pretty much made those campers who got shot immortal. And I did like that the campers' attackers got their comeuppance here. And now this killer's going to go to jail and probably be given the death penalty. But the thing is, though, in this half, I wanted to see the survivors of the first half be back. Just have them say, just show that they called the police. They went to a payphone. They called the cops. And they decided to work with the police to find the attacker's location. That would have been a much better half. They could have had the 7 guys come back. They say, hey, guess what? We figured it was you, so we called the cops and we're going to take you down for what you did to us. I would have liked a revenge ending for this one. That could have been great. This would have been a great segment. So, and honestly, this segment did not need to be split into 2 halves. It could have been combined into one. And this segment would be decent at best, but I like the second half better, but I hate the first half of the segment. Or I just don't like the first half of the segment. But then after that whole story, our second segment, that's one segment, is called God of Death. And this one is shot as this fictional Mexican newscasting. And it's literally set during an actual real earthquake that happened in Mexico around this very same decade. And this segment literally starts off with this woman at a news desk. They're preparing for this news segment. And also, even I at first was starting to hate this segment because this segment literally starts off with the news people we're supposed to be watching. They're acting unprofessional. They're just swearing at one another in all of their sentences. They're just writing nothing but fuck in their sentences. And I was starting to already get some bad feelings about this segment. Then, of course, we cut to another woman who's reporting live from the street. Who's reporting on Mexico streets. Then we cut to another woman. Or no, actually no. And then we get back to the news station where that same woman at the news desk begins her segment. But just as she's beginning her segment, the whole building and the set they're working on starts to creak and shake. The woman literally tries to remain calm, but she gets crushed by the roof that falls down onto her. And this part right here is where the segment really starts to pick up. Once after the whole earthquake has ended, the dust settles, the cameraman is still alive, and he gets helped out of the rubble by this rescue team who come in to free any survivors. And then the team and the man, this whole segment is them trying to make their way out of the building, but they get blocked from the exiting, from even being able to exit. The more rubble blocks off their exit. And once you find out they're trapped, you actually do get some likable, decent character development here. Where one of the female member of the rescue team is obviously a little freaked out with them, but one of the guys actually has a likable moments, and he does try to calm her down and comfort her. So I liked that the rescue team, they actually seem like great guys you could root for in this situation. You want them to get that survivor out. They weren't annoying. They weren't swearing at each other repeatedly. They actually seem like professional people. They continue to search for an exit, and they get met by this. But then, of course, while they're searching for an exit, they get this room of paintings and the statue of this Aztec, and you find out that they're near an underground Aztec temple. Then an Aztec god shows up and kills the survivors, possesses one of the women from the rescue team, and then she kills the only man that's left surviving, and literally in a gnarly-ass kill, which I thought was a really great epic kill, takes out his beating heart as an offering to the Aztec, and I really did like this moment, but I don't like a part of the ending. I don't like that the goddess decides to show her boobs and does this weird dance. And then after that whole ending where the Aztec person kills the last survivor remaining, it ends with a news report on the earthquake. And this is where I found out that this was actually a real life event. So it's nice to see. So I like that they decided to have a tape segment be set during an actual real life event that actually kind of gives it a little more of a terrifying feel, and it's got the good claustrophobic feel to it. Again, like Suicide Bid did, where you're kind of trapped in this kind of little crumbling building. You're just trying to get out of there before you die. The stakes felt real in this segment, and honestly, some people may hate this segment, but I think I'm one of the few people that really likes this segment. I think it starts off a little cringy at first, but it starts to get better once the earthquake happens. All in all, I just thought God of Death was a pretty good fun segment. But sadly, that being said, after God of Death ends, we have the third segment, TK and OGD, and I thought this segment was dog shit. This segment is literally about an annoying as fuck woman who stands on a stage and she prepares to perform for this small group in this auditorium. She's asking the audience if they believe. So it's another this religious artist who asks people if they believe in God, and then says God's dead, and then says the world killed God or replaced him with a new God, the God of technology. And then we get a video projected of this man that's exploring this VR area software, and that gets paired with gloves and a helmet that can simulate doing tasks like picking up a cup of coffee. And as soon as this segment starts, I'm like, how in the fuck is a virtual reality clip on a VHS tape, and why is there some virtual reality segment set in the 1980s? I thought virtual reality didn't exist till like the 2000s. Or the 2010s. Not the 80s. Why is this on a VHS tape? Makes no sense. Then the man explains that he exists on two panels of existence. Then that video ends, and then we get to the woman who's wearing the same technology from the video with a full bodysuit. Then another video on the side, it shows that the woman is seen through a virtual reality helmet. Then the woman begins to scream at this so-called God in the virtual reality area. The show itself for annoying ass laugh and irritating yelling. I don't know how it goes, but I remember she does this irritating as hell yelling, like this whole segment. I just wanted to yell at this woman to shut the fuck up. Thankfully, though, her ass fucking dies because this creature that's in the video literally attacks a woman, and her injuries show up in real life, and Miri knows she's experiencing in the VR area, and then the woman succumbs to her injuries. You think the crowd would be a little scared and run away, but no. These crowd don't seem to notice that she's dead, which is a funny moment because this crowd seems really stupid and brain dead because they clap and cheer when she dies. Like, shouldn't these people get up, run, instead of believing it's actually all part of an act? But whatever. And thankfully this segment ends a little quickly, but this segment, fuck this segment. This is one of the worst segments yet. This one is tedious, pretentious, it's boring, it's shitty, it's lazy, it's a waste of time, it's horribly filmed. I don't know why a VR segment is on a VHS tape. I really hope that someone can make a fan edit of this movie once it hits Blu-ray and delete this crap, replace it with The Subject or Suicide Bid instead. Like, I don't know why one of those two could have been in this movie instead of the stupid VR segment. Those two segments I liked the most in 94 and 99. Why couldn't one of those be in this movie instead of this crap? And then after the VR segment ends, you get back to the second half of the No Wake segment, which is the Ambrosia stuff I already described. So after the Ambrosia stuff, and more of the frame narrative, you get our final segment, and this one was the best segment of this film, and this is probably the third best segment of this whole series. And that, guys, was Dreamkill. And this was done by the very guy who did the Black Phone himself, Scott Derrickson. And I'm already liking Scott Derrickson as a director so far. I mean, maybe not his first few films, but The Exorcism of Emily Rose, I vaguely remember, but I think it's alright. Well, I sadly also did that shitty Day the Earth Stood Still remake with Keanu Reeves, which I thought sucked. And then Sinister, I've never liked Sinister, guys. I find that movie boring and overrated as hell. And There's some nice little filmed footage, but I think it's just a boring-ass segment. I mean, a boring-ass movie. But thankfully, though, I liked the first Doctor Strange movie. He did that. I liked that. I think that's an underrated, one of the most underrated films of the MCU. And then, of course, he was going to do the sequel, but because Marvel and Kevin Feige were being so fucking stupid and taking away his visions, he abandoned their asses and went to do The Black Phone. And that was a great movie. I loved The Black Phone last year. That was honestly one of the most surprising horror films I saw last year in the theater. I really loved that movie. Right there. And then I found out he was going to be doing a segment in this movie, and that got me excited for this movie. That's why I wanted to watch this movie. Even though I was mixed on a series, I wanted to watch this movie because of Scott Derrickson's segment, and I really hoped this segment was going to pay off. And honestly, to me, it did. Now let's get on to this segment. This segment begins with an unseen man recording himself breaking and entering a home, and it's done like the Sinister and Black Phone style grainy footage. And then you hear this woman inside that's calling 911 on her phone, but the man finds her, and he murders her with an electric meat craver, and this was a very well done gnarly death scene. And the deaths here are literally shot similar to scenes from the Black Phone and Sinister, and I really like that. These deaths feel really graphic, they feel disturbing. They're realistically shot well. Then after her death, police arrive, and you have this lead detective who's in charge of it, tells his partner, and how the home and murder scene looks literally similar to a videotape he received at the station of a woman being murdered a few weeks earlier to this. And then that same man from earlier makes his way to another home, and he murders the man living inside. And then police arrive at the home. Then a detective from earlier again comes back, and he had seen footage of this murder in a videotape he had received a few days before this. So the detective tracks the source of these tapes, and they go to capture this goth-like kid that seems to be responsible for sending them. And it turns out to be the son of one of the detectives. The son gets interrogated about the tapes, and he says that he saw the murders like in his dreams, and his dreams were being manifested into the videotape. So it's kind of similar to one of the kids. So this character is kind of like the sister from the Black Phone, where she kind of like has these dreams about the grabbers about to kidnap some people here. So I like that it's very similar to this, and even the director confirmed this takes place in the Black Phone universe, so I guess that also makes sense. And then he sent those tapes to the station to warn the police, but the detective does not fall for this story, even though one of the detectives explains their family had that psychic gift, and Gunter had accurately predicted the future before. Then the final tape is found and reveals his third murder. And then the two detectives recognize the home in the tape, and they go to investigate, and I almost swore that one of these houses almost looked like the grabber's house in the Black Phone. Like, I don't know if I was hallucinating, but I swear one of the houses actually looked like the grabber's house. Almost the same. Maybe a little more remodeled, because Black Phone's set in the 70s, this one's set in the 80s. Then the two detectives arrive outside the house. One detective confronts the other detective about knowing his connections to the murders, and the woman that was murdered in the first tape, and the last tape had literally accused that same detective of assault and stalking. Then the man in the second tape, who turns out to be this attorney representing the women. Then that detective who is getting blamed, he kills that other detective that's blamed, confronting him over this, and he goes his way to kill his son. It goes to kill his son that's back at the police station. And right there, we find out that he is indeed the murderer in a pretty epic, shocking twist. Once he gets back to the station, the detective finds his son, attempts to straight up kill him, but the goth kid reveals he literally knew how this was going to happen, because he had just dreamed about this, he knew how this would happen, and right here you got a very epic finale. The guards pretty much find out that this detective guy was responsible for all the murders, and they go to attack the detective guy, but he fights him off and kills them. But you think it's going to end on a downer ending here, but the goth kid literally picks up a gun, he finally stands up to his prick of a dad and kills him. And it ends finally ending his attacks and ending his crimes for good. And the kid leaves the station. So I like this one actually had a good ending and didn't end on a bullshit downer note. It actually ended on a decently good ending for one of our protagonists. The goth kid with the dreams gets his revenge on his prick dad and stands up to and kills him. But the slight bad qualities, though, is that we never see what happens to the kid afterwards. Like, I kind of wanted to see what became of him after this. Like, did he, like, get vindicated of of those attempted charges? Maybe got cleared charges, and then maybe he like, left town and went to live somewhere else, finally free from his awful dad. I wanted this segment, and, like, hell, I would like this segment to get a full film adaptation from Scott Derrickson himself. This is a segment that would work as a movie, right here. So I really liked, so yeah, people maybe split on this segment. I really liked this segment. I think this segment was a blast. And that's all the segments. I like this. Some of these segments had some better endings than most of the ones in these other films. Like, 2 of the segments actually had some pretty good endings. And that is if you combine the first half of the first segment, the second half of the first segment in one. Maybe then you could call this a more somewhat satisfying segment despite still being just an alright segment. This felt refreshing because usually we always know the only rare segments that actually have good endings in this franchise are Bone Storms, maybe somewhat Subjects, maybe somewhat Suicide Bid, but here, some of these segments feel more like a proper story, especially Dream Kill the most. Because since then again, like, there's just not much to these films, so I have nothing else to say. Like, for the bad qualities, I've kind of already mentioned the bad qualities. The VR segment is the biggest bad quality I have, and the ending of Total Copy with the dead bodies doing the yoga dance was stupid. It was not even needed. And the first half of the segment at first almost starts off like a ripoff of The Wrath from Creepshow 2. Thankfully, the rest of the segment is not. But yeah, I hope there's a fan edit to this franchise where you have the first fan edited movie could be, for the first fan edited film, take out the stupid eyeball bullshit. This is a fan edit for VHS 2. Take out the stupid eyeball crap. Take out the wraparound. You could literally just have this skeleton or demonic-like hand putting in a VCR tape for your cutaway scenes each time the segment ends. Keep Amateur Night from the first film. Keep Bone Storm. Keep Ride in the Park. Keep Safe Haven. Keep Slumber Party Alien Abduction. And you have a decent anthology right there. Hey, like, but that's too many segments. But guys, the first Creepshow movie had 5 segments. So even this could have 5 segments as well. And then you can have a fan-edited follow-up to that fan-edited version of VHS 2, where this one could be keep God of Death, keep Dream Kill, take out the stupid VR crap, and take out the 2-parter segment, because the 2-parter segment is meh. Keep The Subject, keep Storm Drain, keep Suicide Bid, and keep To Hell and Back, and maybe or have the same cutaways, except the same kind of cutaway as VHS 2, except it's also more grainy 80s footage of a skeleton hand or a devil's or demon's hand putting in a VHS tape. And you got a pretty decent anthology duology series like with Creepshow 1 and 2 right there. Not every anthology needs to have a damn wraparound. Even the first Creepshow didn't have much of one either. Except for, like, the beginning and the end. But yeah. Despite that, though, VHS 85, decently pretty good. It was a decent surprise. I wasn't expecting it to be, like, almost the same level as VHS 2, but it doesn't quite reach the same levels of VHS 2. So in the end, to me, personally, VHS 85 is worth buying if you're a fan of the series, and I think it deserves to be on your shelf with your other VHS movies once it hits Blu-ray, which likely could be in June or summer, because VHS 94 didn't come out on Blu-ray till April, then VHS 99 didn't come out on Blu-ray till May, so I can predict this one could probably be on Blu-ray in June. Anyways, that's it for my review of VHS 85. If you're wondering how I'm going to rank VHS 85, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you are a fan of the series and are excited to see Return to what made VHS 2 special, then totally watch and buy this movie if you're a VHS collection know about. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank VHS 85, I'm going to give VHS 85 a 7.5 out of 10. There we go! That wraps up my review for VHS 2. And then now that I've reviewed my review of VHS 85, sorry. And now that I've wrapped up my review for VHS 85 and I've ranked all the segments of VHS 85, now we're good. Now we can finally do one more VHS video where I rank all 8 of the movies. That includes the 2 spin-offs and the 6 main films. Until then, guys, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.